Hello, I'm Kenny Fikes, back at you again. I'm your host of iKnowMedia's Roundtable, where we bring you conscientious clarity through empirical experience alongside reasoned application and analysis. So today, I think we're going to talk about Michelle Obama, and how Michelle Obama knocked it out of the park at the Democratic National Convention. I think she's Jay's superhero right now. She may have been before. We had a talk before about shows, and so here's my levity for today. You know how when we talk about people, we do their voice. It doesn't really sound like them. Like at least you might say, my husband said woo 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 woo, but he doesn't really sound like that.
No,
so I'm gonna do Jay in a minute. So Jay was like, let's talk about Michelle Obama, and I talked about how we want to remain with the empirical experience and the conscientious clarity and not get too political. But sometimes people just force you to say things. And I hope again at this roundtable, we are thoughtful enough that it's hard not to come to some of the same conclusions, because as someone said, it is what it is. So I was like, yeah, maybe we should do this. And Jay was like, nah, but maybe we should talk about Michelle Obama. And I was like, well, maybe we should do this. And Jay was like, we're going to talk about Michelle Obama. I was like, okay, we're going to talk about Michelle Obama. So let's try to, relate it to the higher expectations for Black folks at certain levels, like the expectations that we had for Barack Obama and so on and so forth. And so with that, we'll just start by thinking about what happened when Barack Obama became president. The graciousness of the first lady at the time, Michelle Obama, the things she had to deal with, the things he had to do with. It even jumped off, and everyone knows it now. Of course, the current president likes to say, and everybody knows, but this is true, everybody knows, that Mitch McConnell and a gang of people got together and said, over dinner or wherever it was in DC before, I think even before inauguration, and said, we're gonna make everything this man tries to do fail. That's our mission. And now it's become to undo everything he's done. So with that said, let's talk about Michelle's Obama's message and what we can expect with the advent of Kamala Harris as a vice presidential nominee, and backtracking into what Michelle Obama had to do. And so we're going to stay with this theme of Jay starting us off with Kamala Harris and this subject matter. So let's have a spin at it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Ellis, and I'm excited to be here. And yeah, Michelle Obama is one of my superheroes for sure. And this is, there's a lot of commercialism around her now. She had a book tour. She has a book. But, a lot of why she is so iconic is not just because she was the first Black first lady, but because of how she's carried herself, because of her comport and her demeanor, because of what she accomplished before she came to the White House. We have to just respect that. Her education, her hard work, her accomplishment. But one of the things that I think most people who admire her have come to really respect is that she really shows grace under pressure, and a level of decorum that I think is hard for most people to even imagine being able to execute. You might remember back in 2016 at the Democratic National Convention, and she said, when they go low, we go high, which I thought was really noble and amazing, especially given what that family experienced in the White House. I think if we think back to how America sometimes responded to the Obamas, it was horrible at times. It was uncalled for, it was unjust. When we compare them to this administration, and there's so much scandal surrounding this one man, yet there was often so much disrespect towards Barack Obama. You'd see pictures online of cartoons of him being lynched, and there were all kinds of things being said about his wife, things that were so undeserved. And despite all that, and the tan suit, right? The tan suit we love because that was all they really could say about him. There was like nothing else credible they could find, but that was how low it went. And despite all that, she could stand there in 2016 and say, when they go low, we go high. And I wondered if her tone would change after seeing everything being undone that her husband had done. But she didn't. I think she was this was a lot more of a sobering speech. You know, in 2016, she was like more enthusiastic and like, yeah, rah, rah, let's go get them. This was not that, but it was so well executed. And she gave a very important message about what we have to do as Americans. And she held everyone accountable. But I think it's quite remarkable because I think the Obamas had to face things that other families did not. And I think that comes to be representative sometimes of the Black experience in this country. And I think that for Senator Harris, should Joe Biden be elected, I think that there will be more of a spotlight on her because she's Black, because she's female, because she represents several minority groups. I have a feeling that the press is going to watch her more closely. She will be criticized and critiqued more than will Joe Biden, and her family will also have to live up to the burden of almost being like the first family, even though she would be the vice president. So I think that's kind of what's in store for her, and I hate that for her because she's going to be held to a standard that other vice presidents would never have been. But I do think she's up for the task, as was Michelle Obama.
Got it. So guys, I jumped right into it and we forgot the introductions, but since we're not produced by CBS or NBC, we can do it now and then jump back in. So let's do that.
Hey guys, I'm Elisa Simmons and I'm excited for tonight's conversation, and let's talk about this woman.
I'm Michael Malobsky, Denver, Colorado. Always feel privileged and humbled to be part of the conversation.
Jay?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Jay Ellis, and excited to be here today.
Yeah. And when I say we're not produced by CBS or NBC, it means that like we don't get paid to do it, and so it's not our only job. But we have a wonderful producer, Keisha Rivers, who does a great job for us.
Yes.
Thank you, Keisha.
It's pretty awesome.
Yes. So, Elisa, you want to jump in?
You know so I did not watch. I'm not watching the convention in one sitting. I'm watching each person's spiel, if you'll put it that way, just because I'm not going to sit in front of the TV that long. I will say that Michelle Obama's speech, what I found most attractive about it was that it was identifying one person. I think we all made it clear. She clearly said that Trump is not the person for this job, but she didn't say because he sucks. She didn't say because he's nasty. She didn't say anything about him that was disparaging about his personality. She just said he's over his head. He's in over his head. Like, she didn't say he sucks and that he's a tyrant and that we hate him. She was like, he's over his head. And most of her conversation, and unlike what we're seeing right now in the Republican Party, she also did not attack the Republican Party. She was saying, we've got to come together. We need to unify. And I think that for me right now, that's what I need people to pay attention to when they're watching the two separate political parties right now. And I completely understand that not all Republicans are like what we're seeing on the Trump campaign. But you need to see that you've got a group of people trying to say, let's come together. You don't have to agree with everything, but we've got to be better than we are right now. And then you have some people who their only argument is the left are Democrats. The left are extremists. The left want to ruin the country. The left are nasty. The left, and I think that has a lot to do with why there's so much division in our community right now as a country. And I think Michelle Obama's delivery was so, you could feel it in her body. If you watched her body language, you could feel that she was like, it's like, what in the world is going on? We got to do better. But her delivery was just so non-aggressive towards people who oppose to her. And that's what I appreciated about it.
Gotcha. What do you got, Michael?
So I'm going to preface this by saying that I have never once in my 50 years of life, in my adult life, watched any political convention of any kind ever. I never have. My adult life, and Jay will, I think Jay will ratify this, is that since I left college, and unless you were some weird political activist on campus, everyone was too busy in college to watch conventions. But I was in medical school, and then I was married, and then I was a parent, and I was a resident, and then I was a fellow, and then I was working as a physician trying to support a young family. And that has been the last 28 years of my life. So never once has a political convention risen to the level of me needing to spend time on it. So I just watched the video that was sent to me of Michelle Obama's speech. So I don't have a lot of political context put into it. What the thing that impresses me, and I didn't pay much attention to Michelle Obama during her tenure as a first lady, because I was buried in my just trying to get from sunup to sunup during that time, and sleepwalking through the rest of my day. So what struck me about her, I am struck by the very same things that Elisa said, and I understand why Jay Shree would say that this is someone you admire, is that her humility and her poise, humility, and focus on the positive, and it stands up. And that's not such a weird thing when you talk to people in the world. I mean, most interactions that most of us have with professionals, we're not surprised when people interact with one another that way. But in political discourse, it's like sticking out like a sore thumb. It's a shining light when someone can get up and make a point by focusing on the positive and focusing on what's going to bring us together, and focusing and doing it in a way that isn't highlighting the self. Michelle Obama, I'm sure, gets a lot of heat for lining her own pockets or commercializing herself, but this whole speech was not about her at all, and that's what really struck me.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't interrupt. I almost wanted to, but when you were saying that you hadn't really been involved in watching conventions and whatnot, and you watched the video and you didn't have any political context, I was thinking, great, that's the analysis we want from you, right? I think that others of us have at some level. Being that you are a registered independent, I think it clearly, some independents lean one way or the other, just as Bernie Sanders caucuses with Democrats, and we have, I think the guy from Maine, does he caucus with Republicans? Not sure. But in any case,
there's only 11 people that live in Maine. What difference does it make?
So, in any case, that was good. But the one thing that I wonder, what everyone else thinks about is this: if you are about ideas, and so I've gone back and forth with this notion at times: is the American electorate low information or informed? Sometimes, I vacillate from one to the other. So if you're low information and you get angry, do you follow this thing like, does Donald Trump only have one tool in his belt, which is a hammer? So, you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Does he ever talk about what he likes? I mean, he brags on the economy that he inherited, but really, does he ever talk about positivity of anything? If he wants to cut any government regulations or roll back the EPA, does he say, here's why I want to do it and here's a thoughtful thing? Or does he just say the EPA is bad? If he wants to do something about immigration, does he say, we're just going to keep those Mexicans out and all the racist rhetoric? Or does he say, here's what I'm trying to do with the economy and our people and Social Security? Does he do that? No. And I think that's what's an interesting thing, where Michelle Obama in this speech really told you about ideas and heartfelt things, and talked about bringing us together. And there are reasons. It's not just a hammer banging on things. What do you guys think about that?
I think that his delivery is so brash that it's hard to, unless you just want to be on his team and you're just, going to let him pick you first. For anyone, for at least me and most of the people I talk to about politics, it's just baffling because, Kenny, of all the points you just made, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, I don't care if you try something, identify it works or doesn't work, move on. If you're telling me, very much like Kamala was saying, that she tried with the truancy and her stance on being a little harder on criminal activity that doesn't always line up with Democratic views, she explained why she tried that and why it made sense. And that's all I need you to do with me. Just tell me what the point is, and I can give you a chance to figure it out. But because he doesn't deliver that, it makes me wonder if the people who are diehard Trump supporters, not Republicans, diehard Trump supporters, is it just because they don't have to listen or think anything past being on the team? And you don't have to come up with ideals. He's telling you it's bad. And you don't have to come up with solutions.
So it doesn't explain anything. It doesn't think. I never hear him say a why or a because or a well thought out process. I hear something is terrible, something is corrupt, these are
Nasty.
bad people. Or on the other hand, I hear this guy is great, he's wonderful, he's my friend, I like him, but I never hear any whys. What do you think, Michael?
You know, I think the reason why that is that whenever, like for instance, I know that the group, we're all trying to stay away from, you know, blatant political on either side and trying to focus on the positive. But in terms of this topic with Trump, you know, I got a lot out of Trump's last two interviews. He did one with Chris Wallace, who was a Fox News correspondent, and he did another interview with the HBO team. I don't remember the name of that organization, but he is literally unable to hold any significant facts or information in a way that he can coherently express or support a reason. And he defends it, or he's able to minimize responsibility while still putting stuff out there by saying things like, people say, and people tell me, and they say, and it's in the books and manuals. So of course, all that's an easy and an intellectually dishonest way of saying something to simulate an idea, a group of people, without taking any responsibility for what that is. And that has been, when I look at the one pattern, take away all the other terrible parts of his character, when you're a leader, this is to me the most deplorable thing, because I take that personally, because in my job, I'm never allowed to throw something out and then not take responsibility for it. I have, and most people aren't in their real world lives. And this is what he does over and over. And it's the one thing that is, to me, the most hateful and horrendous thing that he's about, is that the way he delivers that. And that's why he doesn't do any of those things.
So you mean you can't say, here, take these pills, someone told me they work?
Yeah, they said, and people tell me that they work, but that just means that they don't work. They're like, well, I don't know, I guess they were wrong.
So think
fault.
about Harris and those 20 questions. What I was impressed with, you know, when I think about trusting someone, and then I get into this trusting black candidates, which makes me kind of like biased, right? But she was very thoughtful. She talked about the percentages. She connected those percentages to dropouts. She thought, what can we do that we have the power to do, even if people aren't going to like it? There was a reasoning behind it. Speaking about, and this is about character, you know, as a person who's a former Republican, I don't know if I'll be again, I've tried to divorce politics from the character sometimes with people. Some people can do it, some people can't. It's like, forget about the EPA, forget about immigration, forget about the economy, forget about healthcare, forget about crime and punishment. Let's just talk about the man or the woman, and if this is someone you'd want to marry your mother, if your mother was single. Is this someone you would want your daughter to date? You know, is this someone you would let your kids call Uncle Donald? You know, is this someone you would entrust with your portfolio? That's what I try to get at with this guy, and it's hard not to do that. So, you know, although again we try not to be political, it's just hard not to react to this man. Jay, a question I asked you on the phone earlier, and I don't remember what you said, just parts of it, but here's an example. So, Michael, remember when your son was, say, 13 or 12 or 11 and you walked with him places, right? Did you ever put your hand on his shoulder or rub his head or anything?
Always. We're always in physical, my physical contact with my kids is a constant thing, to the point where they now don't like it.
And some people are more physical than others, but I also have a son. And people, if you see this man, the president of the United States, walking next to Barron Trump, have you ever seen a modicum of affection or like a reach or a touch or even a glance? I mean, like, he doesn't even look at his son. Like, so my question is, Jay, do you think this man even loves anyone?
I think he does, and I think he loves himself. So yes, he loves someone. I think that he truly is a narcissist. I think he has a narcissistic personality. I'm not just being inflammatory or calling him names. I mean, he fits the character, the mold, and the standards for narcissism. I think that he looks at people in his life as having functions. And I think that the function is never just because I love you or care for you. I think everyone in his life has a purpose. And I think, you know, if you happen to drift into his life, you have a purpose. And if you don't fulfill that, you know, he doesn't need you. It's a very conditional thing. I think for his son, yeah, I don't think you see warmth because I don't think he connects to people at all, really. I mean, what he knows how to do is to inflame people. He knows how to do that really well. But I think the fact that you hardly see him touch his son, or even when they're walking, you don't really see them talking. Like when you would see the Obamas out, you'd see Sasha and Malia, and you'd see Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, and they'd be kind of turning to each other and talking, and there'd be some discourse. It was just very normal and natural. But I think that Donald Trump not being able to do that with his son is symbolic of him just not connecting to people, period. I think the inappropriate comment he made about his daughter gives you an idea of how these relationships just don't form appropriately for him. He's unable to do that. I don't think he loves anyone but himself.
How that thought could even form, yeah. And again, and so here's an example of how it's not grossly political. If you guys remember, they weren't on camera a lot because I think the Bushes didn't want them to be, but it was clear when you saw those girls that they adored their daddy, right? Like there was a relationship there. It was clear that Chelsea Clinton was the apple in the center of the Clintons' lives. Barron seems like a prop here, and he never looks at him. What do you think, Elisa?
So I don't express, my family's not very affectionate. So you would not have seen my mother nor father touching me when we walked anywhere. Even to this day, I don't need them to touch me. I'm really affectionate with my children, but my brother's wives have guilted them into hugging us. And I'm like, that's not what me and my brothers do. I don't need a hug from my brothers. It's awkward. I'm not an affectionate person with adults. So it's hard for me to say that I don't feel like I can say that I don't think he loves his son, because I think everybody's relationship and their definition of love is built upon how they were raised and their life experiences they have. And I'm not going to say I don't think that he loves his son because of that. I will say, though, that I think that if you go, I try to do this with anyone I'm opposed with. And I can honestly say I don't appreciate Donald Trump. And I'm fine with that politically and personally. When I find someone I'm opposed to, though, and I can't figure out what it is about them, I try my hardest to figure out their foundation. So reading his niece's book, listening to and paying attention to the timeline of his life and what all it could have been. I can only imagine how stressful it was to be raised by his father, to be raised by someone with expectations that you may or may not have been able to look up to. And so I try my hardest to figure out or to give sympathy. The humanity part of me, the human part of me wants to give sympathy to who I think helped create him and why he may be the way he is now. And so other than that, though, I can't appreciate him as a person, but it makes me not dislike him. And I try really hard not to dislike people.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you said for several reasons. One is, I will tell you in my life, folks that other people don't like, I tend to find the best in them. And I like the person that no one else likes anyway. But there's a standard of care when you are the boss or the president of the United States, et cetera. Also, I've never seen George Bush hug his children. I've never seen Barack Obama hug his children. I've never seen Bill Clinton hug Chelsea Clinton. I never saw that. I just saw a man who connected with his family. I'm not talking about touchy-feely. I don't think I saw any of them hug their kids, but I saw them have a relationship. You know when people have a relationship when they're walking next to each other, and you see it over and over and over again. That's what I'm talking about. As far as what happened to him, we're all getting a little personal on this, but I think it matters because we're analyzing character and personality. You know, I believe in pathology and things that happen to people, but, you know, at a certain point, I'm not going to use those insensitive words, get over it. But I will tell you, I never even met my own father. So should I be a bad father?
No.
I'm better now as I'm older. I learned they don't come with instructions, but I'm not 50-something years old making excuses for not knowing my dad. And this guy's president of the United States. That's not a debate with you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no.
There's a point at which we reach pathology and go, you know, okay, so if you can't love anybody, maybe you shouldn't lead the nation. Jay, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Elisa is right. I think, and when I talk about narcissism, like, I mean, this is an actual diagnosis, right? A medical diagnosis. And for narcissists, for whatever reason that this happened to them, that they became this way, it's very difficult to treat or to ever improve. And the level of pathology is just that deep. So I think there are some people who grow up in difficult situations and they adapt to those situations. They develop responses that aren't healthy for them, but they later on learn that they aren't, and they try to get help so that they're not causing other people harm. Narcissists kind of don't care. They don't ever care. And the only time they're going to try to change is if there's something in it for them. They really inherently do not have the ability to care for other people. And so I think he has a personality disorder, and I don't see that ever getting better for him. I don't think he thinks it needs to. I don't think he wants it to. You know, I don't think he's in enough psychic pain about it to do anything different. So what does that mean for people around him? And what does that mean when he's leading a nation? It means that this never gets better. It means that he will only continue to do things that are self-serving, entirely self-serving. And this is the antithesis of being a public servant, right? Because as a public servant, you're supposed to be there to really improve things for the community that you serve. And he doesn't really have a desire to do that. He wants to improve things for the people who are connected to him and for his own purpose. So, I mean, we've seen enough bad behavior from him in terms of how he treats his wife, in terms of how he's treated otherwise, in terms of how he treats the people he works with. I mean, he's got so little loyalty to all of these people who are willing to be loyal to him. And so, you know, what is that saying? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Well, he has shown this nation for a good 4 years almost exactly who he is. And he's shown that he's not even loyal to people he should be loyal to. So why would we expect any better from him as a leader? He won't get better. He can't get better. And we need to do better.
I believe our beloved Maya Angelou coined that, or made it popular: when people show you who they are, believe them or trust them. Michael, you want to add something to that? And then we're going to circle back. See, it's so hard not to go down the rabbit hole on this guy, but you want to, I'll let you add something.
So
we'll go back to
I want to circle back to what you initially said to start the conversation, which was, you know, until this administration, it was a real discussion in this country. All right, so with Clinton or with the Bushes or with whoever, or with the Obamas, all right, so does it really matter so much about who they are personally or in their character, as long as they are doing the good job and being good leaders? Like, how much should we have a right to delve into things like this? And does it matter about things about who they are in their character? And, you know, I'm going to circle back to say is that all of us in this group, you know, one thing, even though we're all from radically different backgrounds and we all do different things, all of us have leadership positions. Every single one of us in one form or another. I know, learning about what you guys do every day as professionals and as community members and as parents. So all of you have leadership positions, and I have had to learn a lot more about leading people since I started a business and stopped being employed, and obviously being a parent of 7 children. So, and only recently have I taken that seriously and really started to try to understand it at age 50 in a way that I hadn't before. And one thing I've learned is that true leadership is the only thing that makes true leadership effective and sustainable is your service to the people who you lead. That's it. Every other kind of leadership is doomed to fail. It does not work. And all of you guys know that inherently because of what you do every day, even though we may not articulate it in that way. And so it's impossible for leadership to be effective without a deep understanding of your flaws, where you need to improve, how you're going to grow. And all of us, you know, I haven't been more humbled in my entire life than in the last 5 years, leading a group of people in my practice that I own now instead of working for other people. And of course, everyone knows being a parent is a daily exercise in humility, all the time. I mean, literally. So my understanding of leadership has been so transformed, and I can't imagine now someone who wants to put themselves up and get elected into a position of leadership and not have a deep, deep self-reckoning every day and understanding of that. I can't fathom it. And so even more so, I find, once again, This is not about, we're not talking policies at all. I get the sense that we're not discussing Trump's position in the Middle East or Trump's foreign policy or economics. This is all about that one piece of what it takes to be a leader. So that's how I wanted to tie your initial opening to the rest of it.
So I'm going to circle back to this comparison about being the first and what Michelle Obama had to endure and what Barack Obama had to endure. So with all the vetting that happens, right? If you've been the district attorney of San Francisco and you've been the attorney general of the state of California, and you are a current United States senator. So whether we're talking about, obviously I'm talking about Kamala Harris, or you're Cory Booker, who's been the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and now you're a senator, or whether it was Carol Moseley Brown before them, or whether it was Eric Holder as their attorney general, or whether it was Susan Rice, or whether it was even Colin Powell, or whether it was Condoleezza Rice as Secretary of State. Let me give you a guarantee, just like the sun goes up, or we rotate, however, whatever your perspective is, we rotate around it or it goes up and goes down. But these things happen in the solar system. It's a guarantee every day. I can guarantee you with a capital G and an exclamation point at the end that there's no one brown in those positions that haven't been vetted and scrubbed inside out, and they are squeaky, 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 squeaky clean. There is no way you're brown and you get to any of those spots. You could not be, it just wouldn't happen. And so that's why we talk about things with Barack Obama like the tan suit, or he saluted with a cup in his hand. That was so disrespectful coming down the steps from Air Force One. They make up stuff and look for stuff because these people are so squeaky clean. I'm not talking about their politics. You guys have heard me say before, personally, Barack Obama is a little bit left for my political leaning. But I will tell you what, the guy has impeccable with an exclamation point, character. And that is important. So when you get someone like Kamala Harris, who's going to be in this position, you know, running win or lose, you better believe she's been scrubbed for the last 12 years or 16 years. So they're going to make stuff up and focus on things. Now, I also want to talk about something that Jay mentioned earlier about the poise and grace with which Michelle Obama spoke. I want to remind everyone that sometimes women get a hard way to go where men don't. You know, let's not, that overused thing that you're tough and hard-nosed versus the B word, or, you know, as a prosecutor, David Holder, even as a black man, did not get the scrutiny that Kamala Harris gets. So when she was questioning and grilling Barr and Kavanaugh, remember, this woman is a prosecutor. You don't cross-examine people gracefully. She was in their stuff and she was on them, right? So she's tough. So you better believe that she's going to get some of that angry black woman, the B word stuff going on, because that's what she does. And she did it for years. But I believe that because of all she's been through San Francisco, state of California, with, you know, the whole thing as a senator, she could be just as graceful, but she's tough and she's going to get a hard time for that. Who wants to go next? Elisa?
You have to look. Oh God, it's so true, Kenny. Women can deliver information and they're immediately given a different label. And I think this goes to, we've had these light conversations on this roundtable before, where if you belong, we all belong to the human race. We all know that. But in that belonging, there's these little subcategories that we all belong to. And this is one of those things that I know most women that are comfortable in identifying things that happen and don't need to co-sign with. They don't want to pretend it doesn't happen. We get treated differently when we're opinionated. We get treated and labeled, and the adjectives used for us when we're thoughtful and when we're smart and when we're demanding of justice or we're demanding of righteousness, we get labeled so differently. And it's like, we don't know our place. And I know that's the same of all subgroups. And you see that with Harris. When I saw her interrogating or questioning Barr, it was nothing aggressive. It was her doing her job, and you're supposed to like people doing their job. And I think what people also, because now people are going to Harris's birth and they're like, is she even American? I think that people forget about that continent across the Atlantic called Europe. White people aren't all born here. Like, why are we not questioning white people's birth? If we're going to question anybody's birth, then we got to question everybody's birth. Like, go back and find their newspaper articles when they were born. And I think that's what people are forgetting. And you need to look. It's important to pay attention to stuff like this, regardless of how race or gender may affect you personally, so that when people point it out, you can see the pattern that's already been there. And we can give you, we know Trump was a big birther, and it was attacking this man's birth, and somebody planted his birth certificate in the newspaper in, back in the day. And it makes it seem like because you don't have anything you can say about him, because Obama, what did Obama do? He came out and admitted that he had smoked weed in college, right? Bush, everybody knows Bush was an alcoholic. There was some sort of weirdness that Clinton let everybody know. And I think it's because the one thing they knew you could pull up on him, they went ahead and delivered. And so you have to attack these other things because they've delivered the one piece of dirt you could pull up, not paying
really dirt.
What?
Yeah. And which wasn't really dirt. And so the thing you were talking about going after Harris's, questioning her birth, that's what I meant about they have to make things up because these people are so squeaky clean. So imagine this, even if you were a racist, you probably laugh yourself at this one when I ask this question. And then Jay, you go next. What if, I'm gonna do the what if game. What if Barack Obama had said, I grab him by the peas? Really? What would have happened?
Right. I mean, he would have never been elected. He wouldn't have gotten very far at all. As soon as that came out, if he had any supporters, he was going to lose them that day. But, I think that, I love the tan suit because what it represents to me is excellence. And I suspect that if they're already going after her about her birth and her true place of origin, it's probably because they so far haven't found a thing. And so, maybe the whole birther thing ends up being this kind of reverse compliment because you're so squeaky clean and you've been so tight with your game. There's nothing that we can say. It's just that you really hate that it has to come to this, and you hate that energy gets diverted from the issues at hand. While people are arguing about her birth, they're not paying attention to what really qualifies her to be there. And that's very frustrating. And it's frustrating that Americans can be so very easily influenced. At the start of the show, Kenny, you said something about, people having something about access to information. And people have access to information, which is great because we can do easy research and find out facts, but many times we choose not to. And we get facts presented to us. And social media has been exploited in that regard for so long. So something stupid like this birther idea will grab hold. It'll get traction. And one thing that Donald Trump has done, which is really, it's awful that he could do this, is that he can just tell a lie. And he's got no problem because his character is lacking. He's got no problem telling a lie in any forum, whether that is a debate, whether that's a press conference, whether that's an interview, just whatever comes to mind, he tells a lie. He might or might not be challenged or fact checked, but the people who support him are willing to believe it. There was that rumor so long ago, and it turns out he actually didn't say this, but he was purported to have said that he could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and people would still vote for him, right? And apparently that was not true that he said that. But the irony of it is that that seems to be true, right?
I think he did say that.
He said
I was reading somewhere that he didn't actually say it.
No, I think I heard him say it.
There's a video.
He was prophetic in that moment. If ever he was prophetic, he was prophetic then. Yeah. And it's true. So he can actually make something up like this whole birther nonsense and have people buy into it and believe it. And he could tell any lie and his supporters will believe it.
So let's come back to that in a minute. I think it's interesting. I would like to say it's sort of like an 8th grader or a 7th grader, but it's not even that, because even an 8th grader who says everyone's a liar who disagrees with them would not be respected in the 8th grade. So, but let me throw something at Michael for a second, and then let's circle back to talk about maybe the 30%, 40%, or 45% who's decided that racism is not a deal breaker, and whatever he says is okay because he dislikes the same people they like. But going back to that thesis of Black folks and the higher expectations, Michael, I want you to comment on what we were talking about in terms of people making stuff up about squeaky clean candidates and what that's about. And what do you think? Is this a true statement or an idea? I believe that. So you see, we know the things that have come out about Donald Trump that no one even questions, right? They just make excuses for it. As a black man, if I had the integrity and the history of Donald Trump, I don't think I could be a pharmaceutical rep. I don't think I could be an elementary school teacher. I don't think I could be a train engineer. I don't think I could be a high school basketball coach. I don't think there's a lot of things I could be just as a black man normally, because there is no boys get to be boys. We get 3 strikes, for smoking marijuana or whatever, and they like to throw us in jail. Donald Trump is the president of the United States who had a fixer. Who are you that you need a fixer? Can you talk about that a little bit about what you think about the idea that I couldn't be a high school principal, but he can be the president of the United States and he has a fixer?
Because I think the number one form of entertainment I consume is still stand-up comedy. The first thing I thought of was one of my favorite routines from Chris Rock. Okay. Do you guys ever hear he talks about who lives in his neighborhood?
The dentist, yeah.
He's like, I have a beautiful neighborhood. And I'm a pretty world famous entertainer. You know what my next door neighbor is? A dentist. He's not a world famous dentist. He's not the best dentist in the world. He's just a dentist. So and he uses this as his metaphors about these things I find are just brilliant. It was the perfect example of, in my neighborhood, if you're white, you can just be a dentist, but if you're black, you got to be Chris Rock. So I think that plays exactly what you're talking about, that the double standard that we all would like to think doesn't exist, that's a perfect crystallization of how that double standard actually works in America. I
think Chris Rock also says in that piece, and my dentist wouldn't trade places with me for anything.
You wouldn't trade places with me, right? And I'm rich, he said.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think, and then I'm on call, so I have to go. I got to head upstairs to the neonatal unit, so I have to sign off after this. But what I am going to say about the idea of the dirt and everything, the one thing also, and I'm going to bring this back to the area of leadership, because really that's what we're talking about, is electing a leader and what effective leaders can do. And, from my learning curve is that being able to express genuine vulnerability and being able to put that out there, for me, has been transformative in my ability to effectively lead people. And
one last question for you then, before you go, since you've got to go, we're going to throw one more at you. What does it mean to you? Or is it just coincidence? I mean, it's politics, right? So here's the political question for you. I'm pretty sure it's yes, so I'm going to go to Trump. I bet you've seen George Bush hold a baby. I bet you saw Bill Clinton hold a baby. By the way, my son, Miles Fikes, who was born in 1992, Bill Clinton touched him, like kissed him or something when he was campaigning in Philly. I bet you, and you've seen Barack Obama hold a lot of babies. Why has Trump never touched the baby on camera?
Because, once again, I think this is exactly my point. One of the things that makes Trump Trump and is such a giant hole in his character that he is, and goes exactly to what Jay and Elisa were saying too, is that Trump has no ability to appear vulnerable. He cannot tolerate the idea of vulnerability, because vulnerability means that you are recognizing a softer side, a weakness, or even just an area where you lack strength, and you are able to express it and to articulate it. So then that says, hey, then I have room to grow. Holding babies is the ultimate kind of guy softening, vulnerable thing. I mean, I hold babies all day, and it's hard to have any machismo and hold anyone's baby. You can't. The two are incompatible. And Trump is so obsessed with his alpha and his inability to express vulnerability on any level. And I think that's exactly why he cannot.
So you don't say to little male child babies, stop all that shaking and hold your head straight.
Yeah, babies are so self-absorbed. Babies are all about me, right?
Got it. All right, man.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Take care.
All right, guys. Everyone have a great night. I'll
Mike.
you guys. Okay. Bye.
So, Jay and Lisa, it's us. I feel like, so what do you guys have to say about this thought? So remember the story of Frankenstein, created by Dr. Frankenstein. So he created this monster that then comes back to get him. I think the Mitch McConnells of the world created an atmosphere wherein we could elect Donald Trump. So we talk about Trump all the time, but my goodness, I think Mitch McConnell is, you know, he's the wizard behind the curtain almost. You know, I said this to Jay earlier. Think about any marketing campaign you've ever heard that was huge. Like, what comes to my mind is Coca-Cola. What comes to your mind, Elisa?
Nike.
Jay.
See, I was going to say Nike.
Okay.
You know, NFL.
Okay. So think about the money and the effort and time that goes into producing those campaigns. It is my belief that the full faith and credit of the United States government, because the United States Senate has access to that budget, and they can call it what they want because no one polices them really. For 8 years, went after Barack Obama. Typically, if it's Nike or Coca-Cola or the NFL, you are spending that money and time to convince the public that it's a good thing. It is my full belief that under the leadership of Mitch McConnell, the full faith and credit financially of the United States government was spent 8 years promoting Barack Obama to be the Antichrist almost. Imagine if you are a kid, particularly a white kid who grew up in maybe a Republican household or conservative, you know, not the old school Republican. We could talk about that later. You probably believe, so you were born in 2000 or 2008, you're either 12 years old or you're 20 years old. I bet that you believe Barack Obama is the Antichrist because they spent so much time and money just pounding this man who has impeccable character because he's black. And they didn't say it was because he's black, but because he's black. And who does he think he is? What was that all about? I just said what I think it's all about. You guys can chime in.
Well, you know what? Earlier when y'all were talking about Donald Trump, this is what I wrote on my paper because I wanted to bring it up. I think he's a pawn. And I always have. And the reason why, so for me, I hold everybody accountable for their actions, but I may not be as harsh on them when I need to treat them, when I need to discuss life with them, when I pay attention to the background that I may think of. And so for me with Donald Trump, I think that they needed someone who would be because at a certain point you got to realize you're doing something wrong and you have to be able to identify that. And in most cases, I saw it with George Bush. I saw it with Bill Clinton. I did not see it with Barack Obama, but I saw it with those other two presidents. When something hit the fan, they both were like, oh, okay, we went too far. We got to humble ourselves. They needed someone who wasn't going to humble themselves. And so I think they found it in Trump because he's not able to do that. He's not able to humble himself and say, oh, this COVID went to. If Trump would have said right around when he released when they sent the stimulus, hey guys, COVID's more than I ever even imagined. I was crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. I would have had more respect for him in that moment. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I think that the Senate, I think the Republicans as a group were like, we got to find someone that we can put up there. And he's so distracting that no one watches what we're doing behind the scenes. Because I don't like Fox News, but we watch it regularly. Like you're watching it just because you can't believe what they're going to let him get away with. And so I think he's been a pawn this whole time for that. Jay, what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, you know, with Mitch McConnell, like he was sabotaging or attempting to sabotage Barack Obama long before Trump came on the scene. And he was doing a pretty damn good job. There is a reason why Barack Obama was not able to confirm a Supreme Court justice when it was the one who passed away right before he left office. That was ridiculous. That was awful. I mean, what a travesty that they took that from him. The Constitution it did guarantee him the ability to do that. And Mitch McConnell was one of the main people leading that charge. And it was just representative of all they had done in the entire 8 years, how they just tried to get in the way of everything that he did. And then once he left office, they tried to just reverse everything that he's done. I think when it came to Trump, though, like they got a little more than they bargained for. You know, I'm serious. Like, I think that they didn't take him seriously when he came on the scene because they figured no one will really elect him. I thought that too. right?
That's the Frankenstein coming back.
Yes, yes. So I think when they started to see that people actually might want this guy to be president, and they kind of have to get on board. But he's not. They can't control him. Everyone that they bring in there to try to help, no one listen. If you have a general, a decorated general who couldn't get this dude under control, he's not controllable. And so I think he's kind of like a runaway train. And so, I'm laughing at them. The problem is that we all go down with this sinking ship. And so I think that Mitch McConnell, he's doing what he can to retain his position and his power. I think that he wants to appeal to the Trump base, even though he probably has no respect for the true Trump base, but he wants their support. I think he knows better than to piss Trump off, because we see what happens to people who are in his camp who piss him off. And it doesn't go well for them at the polls. I mean, you got, some of them are not getting reelected. And so he's dangerous, but I think that right now he gets manipulated as much as he attempts to manipulate Donald Trump. At the end of the day, we have no one there who has enough power to keep any of these people accountable. And it just gets worse and worse. It's really a very frightening position to be in as we watch this all unfold. And Trump becomes more and more bold as we get closer to the election. My worry is that if Joe Biden is elected, that we're just going to see him really just lose his mind and do everything that he wants to do, believes he should be able to do. Yeah, and the thing is,
we haven't seen him lose his mind already.
Yes, exactly. And no one seems to be able to stop him. The checks and balances that are supposed to be in this Constitution, they don't work, right? Yeah, and the people who are there to keep him in line, they don't work either. So he's just off. He's like a little child who's just out of control, and there's no one who can do anything about it.
So although we were talking about, and I think it's not unrelated, it's sort of apropos that we wanted to talk about equally this stuff with Trump and the high expectations and double standards for brown politicians, particularly at higher levels. But it's apropos that we don't have that much to talk about. It's a simple process, and we understand it, that they're squeaky clean and people just make stuff up about them and try and distract you. And Trump gives us so much. And it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter what we think about the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter what we think about law and order. It doesn't matter what we think about the economy. It doesn't matter what we think about healthcare. It doesn't matter what we think about Head Start and schools. It doesn't matter what we think about immigration. It doesn't matter what we think about the environment and global warming. We are talking about outrageous behavior by a human being, and character and integrity and lack thereof. And even as someone who's trying not to be very political, I went through that whole list of issues, and I don't think they matter when we're talking about character and integrity. With that said, my worry is that he will come off the skids. He really already is, because he keeps so much going. You have to be a certain age to even have seen this, what I'm about to talk about. But those broomsticks and the variety shows where people just spun plates and ran from one to the other, that's his level of controversy. And so he's normalized it so much that until he goes completely off guard, like off the skids, like sending the National Guard into the south side of Chicago to shoot black people, or sending a missile off to Venezuela or something crazy, crazier, we're not going to know it. So I'm going to say this and then let Elisa chime in and go back to Jay. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, never have been. I've never thought that any one individual or group of people could get together at night in a clandestine setting and make anything happen. But what he's been able to do, and I think with the support of Vladimir Putin, which is another show, scares me. And there's this clarion call that I think Steve Bannon is still very much involved. All these white guys in Tennessee and Oklahoma and Alabama and up there in the country parts of Michigan with the ATVs, practicing in the woods and the guns and the food stored away. Man, I'm honestly a little afraid of this clarion call if Trump decides he's going to lose and he's just going to make it all go to hell so that he can declare an emergency and stay in office. And I'm scared to death a bunch of black folks are just going to be getting picked off literally by bullets. I kind of, that sounds crazy, but some things I said before have come true that people would have thought sounded crazy. That kind of scares me. Y'all think I'm crazy?
Nope.
Well,
So, okay. When you made the reference of how we were going to talk about Michelle Obama and Harris and how brown people and black people tend to be more ridiculed in these positions. I think the reason, and I'm not trying to speak for you guys or Michael, the reason why we didn't feel like we needed to push the argument or have the argument is because the four of us can't, because we know so many successful and in powerful position brown people that we know the struggle it is to get there. We know what it is to be filtered through everybody and have all the other things coming at you hard. And so we know that argument is true. So we don't necessarily feel like we need to say it too much, because it's like we've all experienced or seen it in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's where a lot of people who don't know that many brown people or black people, however you want to dissect it, if you want to say all brown, all black, go for it. But if you don't know that many people and your only reference to black people are what you saw in Cops, or your only reference for them or what you identify as hip hop music, then you assume that there has to be this dirt. There has to be more than that. Obama couldn't have just smoked it. He must have sold it. Like, you add this other layer because you don't really know black people. I know way more successful black people than I do stereotypical black people, America's stereotype of black people. So I don't feel the need to defend it, because that's what's real to me. And I think that's what so many of Trump supporters don't have that same experience, because their world might be a little smaller. For me, though, right now, I have these groups of white people. I just had this conversation earlier today with a white person who is not from America, which I did check him on. I was like, you can't even vote here, so shut up. But no, his thing is, I'm so scared of Black Lives Matter. He's not identifying those extremists in Black Lives Matter. He's identifying black people that he's scared of. And I'm like, my personal experience is that I have a higher danger rate from white males than I do any black person. And so those people in the forest in Michigan make me more uncomfortable than anyone you would consider in the hood having target practice.
I used to have a guy who was one of my drivers that was afraid to drive to Detroit because he thought that black people in Detroit would kill him and pull him out of Detroit. He's from Texas. Right. Anyway, here's something I'm going to say that I think is really important. Why is it? There's the camera. I would want to ask white people who stereotype black folks and believe that black folks are all about one kind of thing. So there are brilliant people in every race and ethnic, average people that we don't want to claim and we trade and y'all trade too. But with that said, seriously, why is it that I'll just use men. I'll stay on men, but you can stratify. Why is it a black man from some inner city, urban depressed area with his pants down and loud rap music in a car, maybe talking louder that makes you uncomfortable, or even let's say he even did something wrong. He tried to rob you or he stole something. Why does that guy influence your opinion about all black people and confirm it? Is that just confirming what you already believe? But on the other hand, the white guy who stole something from you and is playing loud music and is dirty and is from the stereotypical trailer park with no teeth and he's a meth head and he's just a burden to society, why doesn't he influence what you think about white people? That seems pretty simple to me. Like, is one just verifying what you already believe so it's an excuse, but the other, like, it's something else? What is that? All right, Jay, your turn.
Well, I think that there are three different types of people in these situations, right? So I think that there's a group of people who they're just ignorant to things that are different from them, and they don't know anything about any culture outside of their own. They haven't been very exposed, and they're comfortable right there. They don't want to know about anything. Those people are dangerous, but not quite so dangerous, right? But then you have another group of people who are fearful. So I think that you can be ignorant, but not necessarily fearful. You can be fearful and ignorant. And fear is really a great catalyst to all kinds of oppression and violence and aggression. And then I think you have a group of people who are just angry. They're just angry and hateful. And for whatever reason they do, they hate people who are different from them, or they hate Black people, or they hate Latino people, or whatever. And so these people are all so impressionable. I mean, each group is impressionable, right? And they can respond to one of these dog whistles of Trump's, you know, it ends up almost being the same. For the people who know nothing about Black people, when they hear what Trump is saying, or they know nothing about Mexican people and Latin Americans, and Trump is like, you know, they're taking your jobs and they're all drug dealers and rapists. It's so easy to just believe it. If you're angry, well, you're eager to embrace that lie because it allows you to continue being angry. And now he comes along and tells you that you can be angry and ugly. And so it brings out the worst in people, and he does that. And if you're fearful, then it plays into the fear, and you're like, oh my God, I have to protect myself against these people, and they're going to take my job, and they're going to take my house, and they're going to rape my daughter. And you know, it plays into that. And so people are, the more you get those dog whistles, the less likely they are to try to get past it. Because why should they? They don't have any reason to have to, especially when this group, he's telling the country, we're going to control this group. We're going to control this violence. Look at those looters. Look at those rioters. Now, nobody's saying, well, maybe for people who are out there looting and rioting, maybe we provoked the hell out of them that they've gotten to this place. But it's like, look, they're savages. And that's what we all thought. And that's what we wanted to believe, to do the things we want to do right now. And so he plays into the worst part of human beings. Mm-hmm. And he says, it's okay. Everything your mother told you not to do, she told you don't be mean to people. She told you to be kind and courteous. She told you don't say anything if you don't have anything nice to say. He does the antithesis of all of that. His mother did a really bad job right here, because he's like, I'm going to do everything I'm not supposed to do. I'm going to divide people. I'm going to incite aggression. I'm going to tell people they really don't need to forgive or get over anything. Yeah. And I'm going to put the blame on everybody but me and the group of people that I'm inciting.
And let me speak to this thing of fear real quick. If you did the numbers, you ran the numbers and you did the studies, most people, like Elisa talked about subgroups of people. So although we are a bit of a tossed salad, I don't say melting pot too much because we are different in many ways. Mm-hmm. It just means that no one's better or worse, but we all make up that whole thing together. People who are white tend to marry white people. People who are Black tend to marry Black people. People who are Asian tend to marry Asian people. People who are East Indian tend to marry East Indian. So everything I just said, go tend to, and you can say kill, shop with, love, hate, rape, steal from, because those are communities. So this stupid thing about Black on Black crime, well, most crime in the white community is white on white crime. Most crime in the Asian community, is Asian on Asian crime. Most crime in the Arab community is Arab on Arab crime, because people live in their communities and they tend to do everything in their community, whether it's marry, love, rape, pillage, kill, steal, from each other. With that said, this clarion call that these Black people are going to go to all the white areas of the country and do this stuff is stupid on its face. Because if you're a white and you have been robbed, or someone in your family has been raped, or somebody in your family has been murdered, or someone in your family has had their car stolen in your neighborhood, more than likely it was a white person that did it. And that's the same in every neighborhood. So it's just a stupid thing.
Yeah. Did you guys, by chance, Cat Williams has come down to earth? Did either of you get to see Cat Williams' little stand-up last weekend? Mm-hmm. So Cat Williams did a 6-minute little stand-up last weekend. It's adorable. I feel like he might be on his medication again. I don't know that to be true.
Not in jail right now then. Okay.
Yeah. But he said something, his whole thing was real. I appreciated his whole thing. But at the end, he spoke directly to scared white people that are scared of Black people. And he was like, y'all been waiting 400 years for this to happen. Like, you've been told that we're going to come back and we're have seek revenge for 400 years. And he goes, Black people are better than that. And he goes, we haven't done it yet, and we're not going to do it. And he goes, because we're better than that, and you can be better with us. And it was actually I really appreciated it, because it's so true. It's so true that your fears are because of lack of exposure. It's because of lack of connection. It's not It's not based in truth. The only thing Kenny couldn't put, I'll put Jay and I's group and our producers group together, is that those crimes, even though they're inside, the only thing that splits them, because it's normally the same with your religion, the only thing is gender. Like the only time that those roles go is from a male to a female, and that's the only time they cross over. So at the end of the day, if you're a white woman, your fear should be more based on white men. If you're a black woman, the odds of your assault being portrayed on happening to you is from a black male. Hispanic, it's Hispanic male. You shouldn't be. So many white women I know that are uncomfortable in groups of Hispanic men, Middle Eastern men, black men. I'm like, it's your uncle that you got to worry about. It's not the stranger on the street.
Lisa, that yes. Actually is what I said. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you do the gender, and that's but I did get your point, and yes, it is what you said. I just wasn't processing it the whole way, but it's true, and it's like, go meet somebody different than you, and have a conversation with you. And I think that's what, for the people of us who are not politically Democratic or Republican, we tend to choose people based on what we know about their policies. Or I'm with you, Kenny, I'm way more into character than your actual policies. I think that we need to ask those questions of the people who haven't figured out that you're just being a Trump supporter for the fact of being a supporter, and see if you can identify the hypocrisy that you pretend that you don't like. I did that to, Go ahead,
I'm just
Kenny.
looking at the time, not cutting you off because you're talking too long or anything. It's wonderful. We're just a little bit over now, I think. And so it's time to wrap up. But I think the people you're describing, Elisa, are the people I mentioned before as they can only feel tall if someone else is on their knees.
Yep, feel small. Mm-hmm.
That's it. All right, guys. It's been a good show. Mm-hmm. Thanks. We'll see you.
Night, guys.
Next
Hey,
time.
subscribe. If you enjoyed our show, subscribe or like it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.